Welcome to the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner Prepcast, where we guide you through everything you need to know for your certification exam. Whether you're just starting or looking to refine your knowledge, this course will set you up for success. Brought to you by baremetalcyber.com. Let's get started. Amazon S3 provides more than just raw storage capacity. It also offers mechanisms for protecting, managing, and automating how objects age over time. Two of the most important features in this regard are versioning and lifecycle policies. Versioning allows buckets to keep multiple generations of objects, so changes or deletions are not final until explicitly managed. Lifecycle policies, in turn, let administrators automate transitions and expirations, ensuring that data moves through cheaper storage tiers or is removed when no longer needed. Together, they help organizations reduce cost while also protecting against accidental or malicious changes. At its core, versioning allows you to preserve, retrieve, and restore every version of an object stored in an S3 bucket. When versioning is enabled, anytime an object is updated or deleted, S3 automatically maintains the previous copy. This creates a lineage of generations for each object. With versioning off, overwrites replace the object permanently, while deletions are final. With it on, nothing is ever truly lost unless you explicitly purge it. This makes versioning an essential safety net for critical data, protecting against both user error and unintended automation. A unique aspect of versioning is the distinction between delete markers and hard deletes. When you delete an object in a versioned bucket, S3 does not erase the underlying data. Instead, it adds a delete marker, which makes the object appear removed when listed. The older versions still exist and can be restored if needed. A hard delete, by contrast, permanently removes a specific version. This distinction allows administrators to simulate deletion while retaining recovery options. It also means organizations must carefully manage non-current versions to avoid excessive storage costs accumulating over time. For especially sensitive workloads, AWS provides MFA delete as an additional safeguard. With MFA delete enabled, permanent removal of object versions requires multi-factor authentication, typically a one-time code from a device in the administrator's possession. This prevents accidental or malicious deletions even by privileged users unless they also have the MFA token. In highly regulated industries or environments with strict change controls, MFA delete adds a strong layer of protection. While it introduces some operational friction, the trade-off in security is often considered well worth it. Moving from versioning to automation, lifecycle policies are S3's built-in tool for managing object lifecycles. The building blocks of these rules are transitions and expirations. Transitions move objects from one storage class to another, such as from standard to standard IA or Glacier. Expirations, on the other hand, permanently delete objects or object versions after a defined period. By combining transitions and expirations, administrators can construct policies that mirror the natural life cycle of data: active storage during early months, archival after a year, and deletion after compliance obligations are met. Lifecycle policies become more powerful with the use of filters. Rules can be applied to only a subset of objects within a bucket by using object prefixes, tags, or size thresholds. For instance, logs might be tagged retain equals short and given a 30-day expiration, while customer data tagged retain equals long could be transitioned to Glacier Deep Archive after a year. Filters provide granularity, ensuring that lifecycle policies are not blunt instruments but finely tuned governance tools. This granularity prevents accidental deletion of critical data while still controlling costs effectively. Versioned buckets introduce special lifecycle actions for non-current versions. Since older generations of objects accumulate over time, lifecycle rules can automatically transition these non-current versions to cheaper classes or delete them after a defined period. This prevents buckets from becoming bloated with rarely accessed versions, which would otherwise inflate costs. For example, you might retain the last 3 non-current versions of a file and expire the rest after 90 days. These rules strike a balance between safety and efficiency, ensuring that the versioning safety net doesn't become an unchecked cost driver. Another lifecycle feature is incomplete multi-part upload cleanup. Large objects uploaded in parts sometimes fail to complete, leaving behind partial uploads that consume space unnecessarily. Lifecycle rules can be configured to automatically remove these incomplete uploads after a defined number of days. This prevents stray fragments from accumulating, particularly in workloads with high data ingestion. Left unmanaged, these fragments can quietly grow into significant costs, but lifecycle cleanup ensures buckets remain tidy and cost-efficient. Lifecycle transitions can target multiple storage classes, including standard IA, one-zone IA, and the Glacier family of archival tiers. This flexibility allows administrators to design storage flows that match business needs. For example, media files might move to standard IA after 30 days, Glacier flexible retrieval after 1 year, and deep archive after 7. Each transition reflects a balance between access speed, cost, and retention. By automating these moves, organizations capture the cost benefits of archival storage without the risk of forgetting to migrate data manually. Lifecycle rules are also subject to ordering and minimum age constraints. Transitions cannot overlap illogically, and certain classes require minimum storage periods before movement or deletion. For instance, IA classes enforce a 30-day minimum, while Deep Archive requires 180 days. Lifecycle policies must respect these constraints, or they will fail validation. Administrators must therefore design policies carefully, ensuring that transitions are sequenced properly and retention periods align with AWS rules. This ensures predictable behavior and avoids penalties for early deletions. Beyond lifecycle, Object Lock introduces immutability features for compliance. It supports 2 modes: governance and compliance. In governance mode, retention rules can be overridden by special permissions, while compliance mode prevents any change, even by administrators, until the retention period expires. Combined with lifecycle policies, Object Lock ensures that data subject to regulatory requirements cannot be altered or deleted prematurely. This is invaluable for meeting standards such as SEC Rule 17A4 in financial services or HIPAA in healthcare, where data immutability is mandated. For replication workflows, versioning becomes a prerequisite. Without versioning enabled, replication between buckets cannot guarantee fidelity of object changes and deletions. Both source and destination buckets must have versioning turned on to support same region replication, SRR, or cross-region replication, CRR. This ensures that replicated data mirrors not only current objects but also their histories, including non-current versions. Versioning thus underpins replication integrity, allowing organizations to maintain accurate and compliant data copies across environments. Replication also raises specific concerns around delete markers and ownership settings. Organizations must decide whether delete markers applied in the source bucket should be copied to the destination, effectively synchronizing deletions. Similarly, ownership of replicated objects can be configured to either remain with the original uploader or transferred to the destination account. These choices affect compliance, accountability, and collaboration. For example, in multi-account organizations, transferring ownership may simplify billing and governance, while retaining original ownership preserves traceability. Finally, KMS encryption requires special attention in replication. When objects are encrypted with AWS KMS keys, replication requires permissions that allow the destination account to re-encrypt the data. Without appropriate KMS grants, replication may silently fail. AWS also offers Replication Time Control, RTC, which provides an SLA-backed guarantee that objects are replicated within 15 minutes. RTC is particularly important for compliance-driven workloads, where replication lag must be tightly controlled. These details underscore the importance of understanding the interplay between versioning, lifecycle rules, encryption, and replication. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Designing lifecycle policies begins with understanding the natural stages of data. Data typically starts in an active phase, where it is frequently accessed. Over time, it shifts into a warm phase, where it is used less often but must remain accessible. Eventually, it becomes cold data, retained primarily for compliance or archival reasons. Lifecycle rules allow administrators to map these stages directly into transitions across storage classes. For example, business reports might live in S3 Standard for 90 days, then move to Standard IA for the next year, and finally be archived in Glacier Deep Archive. This staged design aligns economics with reality. The most obvious benefit of lifecycle policies is cost optimization through staged transitions. By automatically moving data into cheaper classes when it is less valuable operationally, organizations minimize unnecessary spending. Imagine a video streaming service that hosts promotional content. After the first month, downloads drop dramatically. By transitioning to IA and later Glacier, the company saves thousands in storage costs without losing access. Lifecycle rules make these savings automatic, ensuring that human oversight isn't required for every dataset. This automation enforces discipline that often slips when teams manage storage manually. When working with Glacier classes, lifecycle management must account for restoration processes. Glacier storage is cheaper, but retrieval requires explicit restores that create temporary copies of archived objects. These temporary copies can be set with expiration timers, ensuring that they are automatically cleaned up after use. For example, analysts needing a compliance dataset can restore it for 3 days of access, after which it disappears without further cost. This restore workflow ensures that Glacier data remains economical but still usable when needed. Teams must plan retrieval windows carefully to align with operational schedules. Testing lifecycle policies before wide rollout is an essential best practice. Rather than applying rules to entire buckets, administrators often test them on sample prefixes or small datasets. This ensures transitions and expirations behave as expected. Misconfigured policies can have serious consequences, such as deleting valuable data prematurely. By experimenting on controlled subsets, teams validate both timing and outcomes before committing broadly. Testing reduces risk while building confidence that lifecycle automation will deliver cost savings without compromising data integrity. Visibility into lifecycle operations comes from inventory reports and storage lens. Inventory reports detail object metadata, including storage class and encryption status, providing snapshots of how lifecycle transitions are applied. Storage Lens, meanwhile, provides dashboards with metrics on usage trends and policy effectiveness. These tools give administrators the transparency they need to confirm lifecycle rules are executing as intended. For example, Storage Lens might reveal that a bucket still has 80% of objects in standard, despite lifecycle rules, signaling that filters were misconfigured. This visibility closes the loop between design and actual outcomes. Versioning works hand in hand with lifecycle to provide rollback strategies. If a lifecycle policy transitions or expires objects unexpectedly, versioning ensures older generations remain available for recovery. For example, if a file is mistakenly expired but earlier versions exist, administrators can roll back to restore the content. This combination of lifecycle automation with versioning safety nets creates a layered defense. Automation drives efficiency, while versioning protects against human error or misconfiguration. Together, they provide both agility and resilience in managing large datasets. When compliance enters the equation, lifecycle and object lock can form guardrails that enforce immutability and retention simultaneously. For example, a legal dataset might be locked for 7 years, preventing deletion, while lifecycle rules still transition the data to Glacier Deep Archive to minimize costs. This dual approach ensures regulatory obligations are met while controlling expenses. Without object lock, lifecycle rules might risk prematurely deleting data required by law. Together, these features illustrate how AWS weaves governance and cost optimization into a unified storage framework. Replication patterns also benefit from careful lifecycle integration. Cross-account replication allows organizations to create secondary datasets in another account, often for backup or compliance segregation. Lifecycle policies can then act independently on replicated data. For example, the primary copy might retain all versions for 30 days, while the replicated copy transitions immediately into Glacier for disaster recovery. This separation of lifecycle rules across accounts balances accessibility with redundancy, ensuring resilience without duplicating costs unnecessarily. Replication ensures protection, and lifecycle ensures optimization. Replication with encrypted objects introduces another layer of complexity. When objects use AWS managed keys, the destination account must be granted permissions to re-encrypt during replication. Without these grants, replication silently fails, leaving data unprotected. Lifecycle rules that act on replicated data therefore depend on encryption alignment. Administrators must coordinate KMS policies across accounts to ensure seamless replication and transition. This interplay highlights that lifecycle, replication, and encryption are interdependent systems, each requiring careful governance to function smoothly at scale. For existing buckets that lack automation, AWS batch operations can help retrofit lifecycle transitions. Batch operations allow administrators to apply bulk actions, such as tagging objects or moving them into new storage classes. By combining batch operations with lifecycle rules, organizations can bring legacy data into alignment with modern policies. For instance, petabytes of untagged archival data could be tagged in bulk and transitioned into Glacier, unlocking cost savings. This feature empowers teams to modernize storage without starting over, bridging the gap between old practices and new governance. Pitfalls in lifecycle management often stem from deleting current versions unexpectedly. While non-current versions can be expired safely, expiring current versions without safeguards may remove active datasets prematurely. This is why testing and versioning matters so much. Policies must be scoped carefully to prevent critical loss. For example, a misapplied prefix filter could expire production data instead of test logs. Awareness of these pitfalls keeps lifecycle policies a tool for optimization, not a liability. Administrators must always consider the human and operational consequences of automation. Monitoring ensures lifecycle and versioning policies deliver as intended. AWS provides CloudWatch metrics and event notifications that track lifecycle transitions and expirations. Alerts can be configured to notify administrators if rules misfire or if unusual patterns emerge, such as unexpectedly high expiration counts. These signals provide feedback loops that catch mistakes before they cascade into larger problems. By integrating monitoring into lifecycle governance, organizations create closed systems where automation is visible, accountable, and correctable in near real time. Documentation is another pillar of sustainable lifecycle management. Organizations should maintain catalogs of rules, tag taxonomies, and associated policies. This documentation ensures that future administrators understand why lifecycle rules exist and how they interact with business processes. For example, tags like retain equals 7 years should be defined in a shared taxonomy, so lifecycle rules and compliance officers interpret them consistently. Without documentation, lifecycle rules risk becoming opaque scripts that no one understands or trusts. Clear documentation turns lifecycle into an organizational asset rather than a black box. From an exam perspective, certain cues point directly to lifecycle and versioning. If a scenario involves replication, remember that versioning must be enabled on both source and destination buckets. If compliance immutability is mentioned, object lock comes into play. If cost optimization through automation is the focus, lifecycle policies are the answer. Recognizing these cues helps candidates quickly narrow down the right service or feature and test questions, mirroring the real-world ability to connect problems with AWS solutions. Finally, operational hygiene demands that lifecycle rules be reviewed quarterly. Business needs evolve, data growth patterns change, and compliance obligations shift. A lifecycle rule that was effective last year may no longer serve today's priorities. Regular reviews ensure that transitions remain aligned with reality and that organizations are not paying for outdated policies. Quarterly hygiene keeps lifecycle rules current, relevant, and efficient, transforming them from static configurations into dynamic governance instruments. That concludes today's episode of the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner Prepcast. Be sure to tune in for the next episode and visit us online at baremetalcyber.com or cyberauthor.me for more resources, including news, mailing lists, YouTube videos, podcasts, and much more.